is that this is a lot of bluster, as usual, coming from the president, because according to the New York Times anyway, the White House seems to already know who the whistleblower is, and that is why the New York Times felt that they were justified in releasing the fact that this person works for the CIA. So my question is, if the White House does know the identity of this person, which it wouldn't be difficult to narrow down because there are only so many people who were detailed from the CIA to the National Security Council at any particular time, then it's kind of surprising to me that the identity of this individual hasn't leaked. And what that then suggests to me is that the leak of that name would not necessarily further the White House's interest here, because we know that the CIA General Counsel effectively took this complaint to the White House, and then lawyers at the White House took it to the Justice Department well before the ICIG took it to the Inspector General, or took it to the DNI, who then took it to the Justice Department and the White House. So the White House had previous information about this whistleblower complaint. It's been reported that they know the identity. So it's curious to me why we haven't seen this splashed across the front pages of Breitbart or Fox News. It suggests also that this isn't necessarily a good thing, and that they know that this whistleblower is perhaps credible and nonpartisan.
So, Matt, one of the many smoke screens the president has thrown up, and his defenders, when they go on television, throw up, is that they go right to this whistleblower is counting on hearsay, on secondhand information. But the Inspector General, in that same statement where he undercut the president's the first impression, the second argument that he makes about the hearsay is undercut as well by the Inspector General.
Yeah, the Inspector General, set aside this dispute about the forms changing, the law never required. But the Inspector General says the guy had direct knowledge, so who cares if it was first or second hand? And the Inspector General further says the guy was credible. He actually had access to these kind of sub-sources that he quotes. He actually had authorized access to the information. He or she was a subject matter expert. And then we don't know what about, but had some kind of direct knowledge. So that really undercuts the president's assertion that this is secondhand hearsay and it's not to be trusted. Another thing is we've seen this whistleblower's information check out so far, right? So he talks about a call that he wasn't on, but give a remarkably accurate description. So even where he or she seemed to have secondhand information, it was remarkably accurate.
And by the way, the acting DNI before Congress said last week that he believed the whistleblower is acting in good faith too, and that he supported the effort there. Doris, I want to talk to you a little bit big picture here about the founders in your wheelhouse, because we are hearing things like the Federalist Papers, we're hearing about Madison and Hamilton and everything that was put in place so long ago for just this moment.
Yeah, I think it's the most encouraging thing we talked about today, when suddenly Hamilton's there and Madison's there. It's the cavalry, they're coming, right? I mean, when there was a time when the rule of law was being violated, when Lincoln was a young man, and he was very worried about it, and he worried in such a tumultuous time that a dictator might arise. And he said the best protection we have against that is that every mother should be reading in their books about the revolution, because the scenes of it are fading. We got to remember it, that every spelling book should have in it the ideals of the revolution. It's not something in the past. We got to bring them to life again. And to the extent that they come to measure and to define for us what is treason, what is abuse of power, what is a violation of an oath of office, so we know that this is our heritage, the more we're likely, I think, to be able to deal with this in the right way. I mean, things are old-fashioned. I was reading a newspaper on the plane the other day, so he said, "What are you doing reading a newspaper?" I said, "I still read newspapers." Well, we still read the Constitution, and they're the cavalry. They're coming, and they'll protect us in this situation.
The only challenge, though, Doris, is we have a bad actor in the White House. What does it mean that we have in the executive office a person who simply flouts the norms and standards that inform the framers?
It means that citizens have to get active to understand that that is a flouting and that's not acceptable. When the citizens get active, as they did the anti-slavery movement, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, things happen.
What's important, I think, also is that one sentence thing you talked about, the Democrats not to get bogged down on the form this. Stick to my 30 years in advertising, I always would say, if you can't sell the idea in one sentence, they can't go home and tell their wife or their husband about it, it's not a good idea. Don't get caught up in this process stuff.
All right, Natasha Bertrand and Matt Zapotowski, thank you both very much for being on this morning. And Doris Kearns-Goodwin and
The moral of the story is just never turn on MSNBC in the morning, because this is what you'll see and hear